Recently, a quite unusual goal has been scored in the Champions League. Junior Messias scored a winner for AC Milan against Atletico. This was the 30-year-old Brazilian's debut in the Champions League. This guy's story is very unusual. Before turning 18, he was playing football in the street. Then he went to the Cruzeiro Academy, but soon he was expelled from there, leaving for Italy to find work. And he worked on construction several years, becoming a courier then. He was delivering fridges and other appliances. At the same time, he was playing at an amateur club where he was noticed. At 25, Junior debuted in the Serie D. At 27, he played in the Serie C, in Serie B at 28, and only at the age of 29, he debuted in the Serie A for Crotone. By the way, that season he finished second by the number of dribblings. Crotone was relegated eventually, but Messias impressed, and AC Milan loaned him out with an option to buy. At the age of 30, Junior debuted in the Champions League and scored the winning goal against Atletico. Unbelievable! In this video, we're going to tell you several such stories about top players who became professional quite late, playing in the amateur leagues before that. But first, answer a question. How old was Sergio Aguero when he scored his first professional goal? 14, 15, 16, 17. Jamie Vardy. A story as old as time, but we're going to tell it anyway. At the age of 20, Jamie started his career in the 8th tier of English Football League at Stokesbridge, at the same time working in the fiber optic factory. Vardy had problems with the law. As he had broken someone's jaw in a pub, the future Premier League star had to wear an ankle bracelet. He had to bear with it on the football pitches of lower leagues. It was hard to believe that a huge fan of vodka with Skittles could have become a pro, but Jamie made it. At the age of 25, he was offered a contract from Leicester and moved to the Championship. You know what happened next. Vardy turns 35 this January, but he is still in good form and only behind Salah in the top scorers race. And having scored 2 against Watford recently, Vardy reached the 93 goals record scored in the Premier League after the age of 30. He shares this record with the Arsenal legend Ian Wright, just like a fairy tale. Kasper Schmeichel. There's another player at Leicester alongside Vardy who came up from the 4th division to win the Premier League. It's Kasper Schmeichel, but we're going to talk about his father, Peter, the Man United and Denmark legend. As a child, Schmeichel Sr. dreamt of becoming a musician and only played football for fun. Rumor has it that Peter played guitar, piano and drums really well, but the boy also loved football. He could play in the streets with friends till midnight. At 21, his friends and family advised Peter to try himself in football as they saw his talent as a forward. Oh yes, Peter signed his first contract when he was 21 and played in the attack. At the same time, he worked as a dyer at a textile factory. He was cleaning old people's houses and installed door locks. It was difficult to earn only with football back then, especially on the amateur level. It's unknown if Schmeichel would have made it hadn't he changed his position. This was a fateful decision. Peter quickly flew up the Danish football pyramid, moved to the Premier League, sensationally won the European Championship, and put his name in history. Didier Drogba. Another legendary Premier League forward was an amateur for quite a long time. Until 21, Drogba was playing football only in the streets. Because of constant moves, poverty and need to work, Didier had no chance to enter a football academy. At a very young age, he was sent to France, where his uncle Michel Gauba was playing. Gauba sent money to Drogba's family as there was a real famine in Côte d'Ivoire, and he paid for his nephew's move to France. Gauba wanted Drogba to become a footballer, but his parents were against it. That's why, at first, the future Premier League star had to train with the school team. For a long time, Drogba played as a right defender, until his uncle recommended him to a friend at Le Mans. The French club manager Marc Westerlope said that the first 4 years, Drogba was unable to train daily and play every week because of family issues and school. His parents were making him study a lot. That's why Didier rarely attended the football academy, playing only in his free time. Only at 21 Drogba signed his first contract, and at 23 he started playing regularly. Though later he had an outstanding career: Marseille, Chelsea, Champions League title, and the reputation of one of the best Premier League players. Miroslav Klose. Another great striker that climbed up from below. When he was 3, Klose's family moved to France, where his father was playing football. Later they settled in Germany. Miro always remembers how they lived in the refugee camp. The Polish boy had hard times there, as he didn't speak German and didn't have any friends. Also, he was lagging behind the school program. He had to go to the 2nd grade, though in Poland he had graduated from the 4th. After school, his father made Klose keep on studying. The family wanted Miroslav to obtain a diploma of a professional, so he attended carpenter's classes and worked as one until 22. At the same time, he was playing in the 7th division for an amateur club. It was just a hobby, but soon he had an unbelievable rise. He moved to a club in the 5th division when he was 20. 3 years later, Miro was signed by a Bundesliga club. This is how Klose's outstanding career started, which he ended as one of the most effective forwards in the history of German football and the World Cup top scorer. Edin Dzeko. Dzeko had a tough time. He grew up during the civil war in Yugoslavia. Edin's house was shelled, many of his friends died, and he was saved from a shell only thanks to his mother's intuition. In an interview, Dzeko told that when he was playing with his friends on a playground, his mother insisted him to go back home. Edin did so, and a few minutes later the playground was shelled, and everyone there died. It's terrible, but Dzeko made it. Unlike others, his family did not leave the region and survived the war. But of course, it had its impact on Dzeko's football career. He attended the Železničar Academy only at the age of 19. From the Bosnian club, he moved to the Czech Teplice. This boosted his career and soon he moved to Bundesliga, becoming a champion at Wolfsburg. Dado Pršo. Pršo is one of the best forwards in the history of Balkan football. Dado has become a champion in Scotland and France and also played in the Champions League for Monaco. He played at the youth teams of Hajduk and Zadar, but could not settle there, moving to a club of the 2nd division. Then war came to Croatia, and Pršo had to leave for France with his family. There he offered his services to FC Rouen from the 3rd division, but playing there only 10 matches and scoring only 1 goal, he was released. Dado found a job as a mechanic not far from home and forgot about making a footballer's career. After a hard working day, he was spending evenings in bars, drowning in alcohol his thoughts about his relatives and friends that had stayed in his homeland. The only bright spot in his life was the local amateur club St. Raphael. Fortunately, the Monaco scouts noticed him during a match. At first, he gained some experience in the 3rd division, and after returning from loan, he became a first-team player. Pršo debuted in League One only at 26, and only by 30 he became a top forward. Ian Wright. Wright was one of the most notable Premier League players in the 90s, but he became a professional quite late. At a young age, he was unable to get into even a small club, so he got disappointed in football. Ian became a plasterer and played at an amateur Greenwich Borough on weekends. On a Sunday league match, Wright was noticed by Crystal Palace scout Pete Prentice, who offered Ian a trial at a big club. The head coach Steve Coppell was so impressed by the player that offered him a £100 per week contract on the 3rd training day. Quite good money for that time, so Wright signed his first professional contract at only 22. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. During his playing career, some called Solskjaer a fisherman. as he could have chosen a boat and fishing net over football. That's not really a truth, but in fact the future Old Trafford star could have not started a footballer's career. As a child, Ole wanted to follow his father's footsteps and become a Norway champion in Greco-Roman wrestling, so he trained on the mat, and at the same time he played at a semi-professional club in the Norwegian third tier. Fortunately, Solskjaer eventually chose football, as he was not so successful in wrestling because he was small. In his wrestling team, he got nicknamed Little Ole. His small height and weight at first were a problem in football too. He started growing and showing his talent quite late. Also, he had to delay the start of his career as he was obliged to serve a year in the Norwegian army. Only at the age of 21, Solskjaer realized that football is his fate, and he signed a contract with Molde. At the club, he made the name of the most talented player in the country and received an offer from Man United, where he spent the rest of his career. Carlos Bacca. The Colombian is far from the fame of the players in this list, but his story is no less interesting and maybe even more unbelievable. Bacca was born in a very poor family of a fisherman, but his parents encouraged their son's passion towards football. On weekends, Bacca played for the district team, and at the rest of the time he was helping his parents with fishing and selling the fish on the market. At 20, Bacca eventually appeared at Atlético Junior, but he was unable to earn there. That's why Carlos had to work 15 hours per day as a bus driver. Besides, he was helping his father fishing. He was wearing himself out and even was thinking of quitting football. Fortunately, it did not happen. Soon all the coaches saw Bacca's talent. After several loan spells, by 23 he became a first-11 player, and by 26 he moved to Europe, where the Colombian collected cups, including 2 Europa League titles with Sevilla, and he still plays in La Liga at the age of 35. Kohler. Finally, the story of one of the tallest forwards in European football. Interestingly, Kohler did not only start his career very late, but he also managed to earn on his own transfer, though it all was quite difficult for him at first. At 19, he had a failed trial at Dukla. The coaches thought he was weak and had low stamina. After that, Jan went to the army and became a mechanic. After the army, Kohler was repairing cars in his friend's garage and lived there. Also, he trained with an amateur team. As is often the case, Kohler was noticed by scouts of Sparta, but before his move, Jan managed to sign a contract with a semi-professional club with a funny name, Smetanova Lgota, and only after that he moved to Sparta for 100,000 crowns. Half of that sum he gave to the club. The fans insulted me, they whistled. Some players ignored me, especially those whose playing time I took. But I can understand them. They had been training in the best academies of the country since childhood, and I started a career at 21. But Jan proved that even with an unusual body and low steers, you can become one of the best strikers in the history of your country.